For Lothar Späth, this visit to the eastern German city of Jena is a trip down memory lane. The one-time state premier of Baden-Württemberg first came here 20 years ago to embark on what would become the greatest challenge of his life.
Not knowing everything when I first came here was an advantage. I underestimated the problems a bit. We had completely the wrong idea about the reality in the East. I originally only intended to stay 3 years, but it turned into 12. It took a lot longer than expected.
6 months after reunification, the industrial sector in eastern Germany was in disarray. After decades of mismanagement under the communists, most of the larger state enterprises now faced being dismantled. One of them was Carl Zeiss Jena, the East German part of a leading optics company broken up after the war. 30,000 jobs were now on the line.
It was basically a huge collection of buildings that were in disrepair and were polluting the environment. We could see that the entire complex was not suitable for our plans.
Späth himself had just emerged from his own crisis. He had resigned as state premier after revelations concerning sponsored travel expenses. For Peter Röhlinger, then mayor of Jena, Späth's resignation was a godsend. Leaving politics behind, Späth became a manager.
There were no reservations, and as soon as he arrived, you could see the hope in people's faces. Lothar Späth is there.
Späth was aware of these hopes when negotiating with the Treuhand, a government agency that oversaw the privatization of formerly state-owned companies in East Germany. In June 1991, he met with Treuhand representatives to discuss government funding. He asked for the equivalent of some 1.8 billion euros.
I watched a lot of companies back down. Sooner or later, they had to go back to the Treuhand for more money, sometimes 3 or 4 times. Each time the company would be sold to someone else, which was hardly helpful.
After securing the funding, Späth's next step was to lay off 15,000 people, which earned him an angry backlash. Like other conglomerates in the East, Carl Zeiss suffered from ballooning administration and outdated equipment. The mass redundancies were Späth's only chance of salvaging the site.
In my entire political life, nothing troubled me more than those mass layoffs. Something I had to do. There were people with tears in their eyes holding up banners damning me. I couldn't blame them. What would I have done in their shoes?
Späth showed a lot of social commitment back then. He took care of social welfare facilities and community centers. He showed he was also taking responsibility for the people he couldn't keep on.
But Späth's primary attribute was his business acumen. He used the cash injection to rebuild Carl Zeiss. He set up subsidiaries, drew new firms to Jena, and turned a state-controlled company into the high-tech group Jenoptik. The company is now a global leader in laser technology, supplying everything from medical instruments to speed cameras. Späth says that teamwork was the key to the company's resurrection.
I always teamed up 2 managers, one East German and one West German. I'd stressed that I wouldn't accept anything unless it had been signed by both. They had to get along and not work in separate groups. It made a big difference, and people felt that they were being taken seriously.
Jena has since become an engine for regional economic growth, but Späth doubts the boom promised prematurely after reunification will be seen everywhere.
There are clusters here and in Leipzig and Dresden, but we'll always have problem areas, both in the West and the East.
In 2003, Späth returned to his native Baden-Württemberg, but he's still a popular figure in Jena. There is one aspect of his legacy, however, that still earns him criticism: this modernist sculpture by the American artist Frank Stella.
I got a lot of flack for this sculpture, of course.
Why?
They said we've enough of our own trash here without this trash from America.
Lothar Späth in Jena, a story of successful teamwork between East and West.